Meg's Monster! As I mentioned in my last review of I Am Dead, I love story-based games. Now this is a very story-heavy game, with occasional fighting sections. I both liked this game and was very frustrated with it. Its pacing was all over the place. Now before I go any further, I do want to say this game was sent to me by the publisher. So like always, I want to disclose that. Now this is technically a turn-based battling game. I say technically only because I would say it only really plays a really small part in the game, maybe 20%. Most of the time it's just your character going somewhere or interacting with someone. So this is more of a walking simulator than a turn-based game. Now the story is about Roy, a brutish monster who loves eating waste, and his best friend Golan, who finds a human child named Meg. Roy is too busy eating his magic tar, as he calls it, and offers the child to his friend to eat for dinner. Golan's about to eat her when Meg starts to cry, and the world around them starts to look apocalyptic. They then calm her down, and then it stops. They realize that she has a special power, that if she cries, she could destroy the world. They decide to keep her and help her find her mom, while stopping any other monsters from having a snack of her. This plays into the emotions of a young girl and a big hulking monster that become friends. And yes, the parallels with Monsters Incorporated is very apparent. It really wants to have the same emotional beats as that one does, and it really never does. It does try, but it waits too long to do it. While there are some cute scenes between Roy and Meg, of them playing and him grudgingly interacting with her, the turn that he will clearly have is backloaded in the second half of the game, unfortunately. The story really is not as balanced as it could have been. Him becoming softer early on and showing some real emotion would have made the overall story better. But the one thing I think they did well was the relationship between him and his best friend Golan. It had a very believable flow to it. The way the world is set up was very weird. This type of game is usually about the atmosphere and exploring the world, but for the most part the areas that you go to were extremely small. Most of these types of games will have sprawling areas for you to explore, but the areas that you go to are no more than 2 screens large, and it's often had very little to interact with. I both appreciate the fact that they were not a bunch of pointless mazes to maneuver through, but I was also underwhelmed on how little they added in. It's usually a hard thing for these type of games to balance, and everything just seemed too empty in this one. There are mandatory objectives and a few optional ones, and they might as well just make those mandatory as well. Why wouldn't you do them? They were there just to flesh out the characters, or give you the one and only fetch quest in this game, to make a hamburger. Thrilling, I know. What's even more frustrating is they have you get up in the morning, walk to an area, spend a couple minutes there, then you go back to your home and to bed. It's been an hour at best and they decided to go back to bed? Why? Does everyone in this place have narcolepsy? Even more frustrating, when you're doing an optional objective and you see the person that you say you're going to see tomorrow to ask them a question, they just totally ignore that you're even there already. The whole point of you going home was to see him the next day, but you're already seeing him. Everything for the first half of the game is like that. Start at your house, go to 1 or 2 locations, then back to your house. In the second half, I will fully admit I enjoyed it more, mainly because it does a twist I wasn't expecting. And seeing that and knowing the game is going to go off the rails, I was totally on board. I just wish the rest of the game was as good. The biggest problem with the ending, without spoiling anything, is the exposition dumps. The rest of the game will show us the scene happening, but in the ending parts, a good deal of it was just static screens with text coming up. It felt like they just didn't want to bother making up scenes. It took me out of the moments, and this happened a lot towards the end. Now I'm going to briefly talk about the turn-based parts. There is absolutely no grinding for levels. They will give you everything you need to beat it when you enter the fight. Your character, Roy, will have a huge amount of health. Most fights you don't need to worry about yourself, but you're going to need to keep the child happy, and if her hit points go under 0, she cries and the world ends and it's game over. The enemies will always hit both of you, but it's always half the damage to the child. You're going to carry toys around with you to cheer up the kid. It will heal her up a certain amount, and you can only use it once per battle, so knowing when to heal her and when to attack is essential. They let you do more powerful attacks if you decide to wait a turn, heal, or do a special action. You can give to 3 stars, which your 3-star attack would get the most damage. There would often be gimmicks in battles, like for example minigames to play, to change up the action, which I appreciated. However, I never liked the turn-based parts as it felt tacked on, and they were often too easy, with the exception of the final part of the game where the difficulty spikes massively, but I guess it's to be expected. It was just weird when the rest of the game was so easy. Now I liked the music in this game. It was upbeat and fun, and the art style they used gave the characters more expressive features, and it helped me connect with them more. Meg's Monster had an interesting, if not crazy, story. All the major characters that you're with or meet have real depth to them, more than you might expect, and they each go through a journey, good or bad. Now this is normally $14.99, and I would wait for it to go on sale. The story is just long enough to not drag out, but the pacing and the flow of the story itself, especially in the first half, is something you're going to have to really push through. If you want to play a game that's more concerned with character moments than the turn-based combat, then you might like this, but get it when it's on sale.